Welcome, everyone. We're going to get started in just a minute. Just letting some folks in. Feel free to turn on your video and chat if you'd like.
I know, say hello.
We're talking to ourselves. Hello.
Hello, I'm here. Wait, oh, my camera is off. There it is. How do I put that on? No, I don't want that. The camera.
I see some familiar names, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Hi, Nancy. Hi, nice to see you. Nice to meet some of you.
Welcome.
Hi, it's Gail's husband, Steve. She sent me instead, and that's okay.
Hi, Steve.
Awesome. I see.
Hi, nice to talk to you. I'm looking forward to this.
Oh, great. I'm looking forward to it also. Hi, Mark. Nice to see you.
How are you?
Good. So glad you're here.
Yeah, very exciting to cook with you. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to be cooking tonight.
So why don't we get started, and I'll just let folks in as they come.
Okay.
So good evening. This is my formal introduction. Welcome to our virtual Wayland Library event. Tonight, we're excited to have Nancy Wynn back to speak with us about plant-based holiday dishes. Nancy is a health coach and yoga instructor. Here comes one more person. There we go. She's embraced a plant-based lifestyle and has a deep interest in Ayurveda and living with the cycles of nature. In 2015, Nancy founded Peaks and Poses Trail Yoga, which combines her love for yoga and the outdoors. She's excited to help others experience a life of connectivity, balance, and flow through her teaching, coaching, cooking, and yoga instruction. Thank you again to Nancy for returning to the library. I just have a couple of Zoom housekeeping notes. First, we're recording this session for broadcast on Waycam, our local cable access channel, so you may see a little thumbnail of your video of your face on TV, unless you turn off your video sharing. But during her presentation, I recommend that you switch to speaker view, and that's what I'll be recording, just Nancy cooking. And feel free to add your questions into the chat at any time, and I will voice them. Or if we end up being kind of a smaller group, people could just speak up, I think, right, Nancy?
Absolutely. If you're comfortable just speaking up, feel free to do so. Some people feel shy or they don't feel like they're going to interrupt me. I can typically cook and talk at the same time. But if you want, you can field your questions into the chat. I love the dialogue, but it's up to you. So
either will work. So speaker view, put your questions in the chat or just shout them out, and feel free to message me. I'm Courtney if you're having any technical trouble. And so I think we're ready to get started, and I'll hand it over to our gracious presenter, Nancy.
Thank you so much, Courtney, and thank you again for inviting me back to be a speaker with the Wayland Library. As some of you know, I lived in Wayland for over 20 years, and it's really like I'm in Hopkinton now, but I still feel very attached to Wayland, and was super excited that that Courtney was open to me coming in and doing some events. When I first started to work with the Wayland Library, they were live. So a little bit of a silver lining during our COVID pandemic shelter at home is an event like this, because it would be really challenging for me to cook at the library and for you to be in your home, in your kitchen, cooking along with me. So kind of have to look at the bright side of some things. And thank you for that wonderful introduction. I am a health and lifestyle coach. I am the founder of Peaks and Poses and facilitator of a group coaching program called Power Up, where we really just, I'm a facilitator to help people really find your own body wisdom and to make some small changes over longer periods of time to sort of really create an identity for yourself, one that really resonates with how you want to live and proceed into your future living. So if you are cooking with me, I'm not sure how many of you are, but if you are, go ahead now and preheat your oven to 400 degrees. That was going to be for the squash. I have, as you can see, I have pre-cut a lot of things. So if you are cooking, don't freak out. You'll have time to, to move along with me. And if it's not at the exact same time, it's okay. They're actually pretty basic recipes, especially the stuffed squash, because you're really making like a quinoa stuffing. So I looked at the recipe and I thought, well, I could just eat this on my own. And sure, you can put it into a squash and eat it that way. You could put it into a different squash if you don't like acorn squash. So I found like that recipe to be very flexible. And the other one is the cranberry clove chutney, which is sort of a little bit of an offshoot of our typical cranberry sauce. Everything is plant-based, and my definition of plant-based is really whole foods, non-processed, and my lifestyle is to really engage in nature and to lean towards inviting more plants, fruits, vegetables, seeds, nuts, grains into my kitchen, onto my plate. So I certainly don't tell anybody how to eat. I am just sort of leading by my own example and feeling very energized and very healthy by a lot of the choices that I make. I got introduced into sort of a plant-based diet lifestyle through my learning about Ayurveda, which is really a holistic health and wellness system, really balancing out living with the cycles of nature, the cycles of the day, about 8 years ago. So it's been a long journey for me. And so I don't want people to feel like, oh, this is something that I have to do right away. But I have to say, I'm super excited that so many of you are here, that you've taken some time out from your evening to join us and to, to hopefully open up your eyes, your mind, if they're not already wide open, to all of the wonderful resources that we have here in New England, to be able to eat with the seasons and to eat locally and to support a lot of our local farms and our CSAs. So what we're going to do, so thank you all for being here. What we're going to do is we're going to start with just sort of preparing the squash. We're going to put it into the oven, and then we are going to actually put together the cranberry and clove chutney and set that on the stove. And while that is cooking, and then we're going to make the quinoa. All right, so for those of you who kind of want to know, like, what are we doing tonight? You've got a little bit of the agenda. And again, I can see some of you. I definitely can't see anything in the chat. So again, feel free to engage with me, stop me and ask questions. And again, Courtney can also field some of the questions. And, hopefully along the way, not only did you get some really nice recipes that you can share with your family, but hopefully you'll pick up a few of my own meal prep tips, kitchen tips, things that, products I like and places that I like to go and shop. So
I have a question.
Sure.
Do you mainly use organic, or do you only use organic, or don't you?
So the answer to that question is no. I'm not organic only, but there are many items that I will buy that are organic. There is a list. I think it's called something like the 13 organic foods. So that's sort of like this list of foods that are really highly recommended that you eat organically. Like, I know one of them are apples. So I will.
Yeah, I have that.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, so as you got the recipes, the acorn squash stuffed is, I got this through my mentor, Kate Stillman, through yogahealer.com by Ashley Dentino. And I think she just submitted this particular recipe. And the other one that we're going to make, the cranberry clove chutney, comes from one of my absolute favorite books. I'm going to show it to you here. It's called the Everyday Ayurveda Cookbook. I'm not sure if the Wayland Library has this cookbook. Courtney, you might be able to answer that. But I do know that the Morse Institute Library in Natick has it, so you could be able to borrow it just through the Minuteman Network. And it's written by Kate O'Donnell, who used to be local to the Boston area as a yoga instructor, Ayurveda practitioner. And she's got 2 cookbooks, and she just came out with her 3rd book just on Ayurveda self-care. I absolutely love this book because not only does it give you an introduction to what Ayurveda is and how to sort of live a life in balance, but the way the book is organized is by the seasons. And I would say that this book was a game changer for me to start eating more seasonally. And even the science right now is showing that as we can align with our whatever is being grown and harvested seasonally, it builds up a healthier gut, a healthier microbiome. And so it inevitably will keep your immune system high. It's tricky when you go to the supermarkets now because we're fortunate that we have so much produce available to us. So it can get tricky to kind of know, well, what's in season throughout, the change. And so a lot of times when I go to a supermarket, I might just see like what's local. So you kind of know like with that section that says what's local, that really is in season now and is being harvested and grown. So so this book is just, I love the organization of it. It's also extremely simple recipes, but they're also full of nutrition, really densely nutritious, so that a lot of times I find that I don't even have to eat a lot of it, and I really feel full. So this is the Everyday Ayurveda Cookbook, and that's where the Cranberry Clove Chutney came from. So what I'm going to do now is, just to prepare the squash, I've already preheated my oven, and I'm going to I've got my squash just in a glass baking dish, and it just says to fill halfway with water and place on the bottom rack. So the water is really just going to kind of steam your squash. So here is full disclosure that I have not made this recipe before. It's probably one of the few that I am sort of cooking with a group of people that I haven't cooked before. And I'm not sure why, so maybe this recipe will win me over, as I tend to go towards butternut squash and the kabocha squash and not so much the acorn squash. I was actually kind of excited to try out this recipe. So this is going to go in my oven. So all I did was cut the acorn in half, scooped out the seeds, placed it in my baking dish, added some water to it, and it says bake for 40 to 45 minutes. So I'm just going to set my timer. I usually set my timer for the shorter time period when they're giving a time frame, just so I can test it out then. And for the acorn squash, I'll probably just stick a fork or a knife in there just to see that it's at least soft enough for it to eat. I'd rather kind of undercook something than overcook it, because nobody really likes burnt food. But believe me, that has happened before. Okay, so we're gonna put that recipe on hold right now. Actually, we're not, I take that back. We are going to cook the grain, because that's gonna take a little while. So the choice here was for some wild rice or for some quinoa, and I'm gonna cook some quinoa along with it. I love rice, but I actually really love quinoa. I love the sort of the nutty flavor of it, the versatility of it, and it has a lot of protein in it as well. So it's a good option right here. And the other thing that I love about quinoa is you can have it hot, you can have it cold, you can have it like a little warm. So I sort of sense that there's going to be a lot of this quinoa mix that's going into my acorn squash, and I'm going to have some leftovers, which really nice. And so it could be like a nice side dish, or maybe it might even be breakfast for me tomorrow. And I'm just gonna get a cup here. So I'm just gonna measure out a cup of quinoa. Brown rice would also be nice with this. So I like the recipe because it just gives that versatility to choose what you would like. And excellent. I have just about a cup of quinoa here. So if anybody is cooking along with me, I'd like to know what your choice grain is.
Nancy, it's Steve. I'm not cooking along, but we did make acorn squash soup today. And I was going to suggest, if people don't want to toss the seeds, I typically set the seeds aside for a day or two and let them dry out, and then I bake them.
Nice.
They're tasty.
Right, like a pumpkin seed?
Exactly. And then I put the seeds on top of the soup, right? And that's perfect.
Oh,
nice.
Because you know what, I did that with a pumpkin that I roasted, but I didn't do it with the acorn squash seeds. I recycled it. I put them in the compost. So thank you for that tip. All right, so for the quinoa, I'm just adding a cup of quinoa. I don't know, my standard is 2 to 1. So just 2 cups of water. I'm lucky I've got filtered water from my fridge, so I just added that. You could add a little bit of salt, I suppose. When I make quinoa on its own, I just add a little salt. Sometimes I do a little bit of oil. And I'm just gonna bring that to a boil. So I'm gonna watch that. Okay. So now we're going to move on a little bit to the to this chutney. The chutney, I had made a note. I think I made it for Thanksgiving 2 years ago, and I wrote down. I usually do this on my recipes, that it was delicious. So I'm happy to make it again. I'm going to move you guys, so you're going to get a little bit of a different view here. Okay, great. And so for the whoops. I'm going to switch. Okay. Because I'm going to make the cranberry right here. There we go. So again, pretty easy recipe. It calls for fresh cranberries, which we all know this time of year are really seasonal. In fact, if you ever want to make this any other time of the year, I would suggest buying some extra cranberries now and then maybe freezing them and keeping them. Because seems like after Thanksgiving, they are gone. Yeah, and they're kind of nice to have, like winter-y. So this is a 12-ounce bag. So it says to combine the cranberries, the spices, the ginger, the orange juice, and the orange zest. So I'm just going to pour that in. Probably should have rinsed this, just FYI. That's okay though. I got a few twigs in there. You know, they say dirt is good to eat, right? If you don't scrub everything, your dirt is good. And then I'm going to add just a little bit. I did another cooking class and I made some butternut squash cranberry muffins. And I put some fresh cranberries in that. So I had a little bit left. It's getting a little warm. I'm going to save these so I can make muffins for Thanksgiving weekend. So if you're interested in that recipe, send me a message on my website, peaksandposes.com. Just send me a message and say, can you please send me that recipe? Because it's such a great muffin recipe. Okay, so we got cranberries, then we have some spices. We've got 2 cloves and a teaspoon of cinnamon. So you want to remember before you serve this to take the cloves out. All right, I'm just going to put in 2. Smells so good. So if you're cooking with me and making the cloves, make sure you get a little snip in there. Absolutely delicious. And then I've got some cinnamon. A teaspoon of cinnamon. And some ginger. So typically when I have a recipe that's called for ginger, garlic, onions, I tend to cut or chop like at least 1 or 2. If the recipe calls for 2 garlic cloves, I'll do at least 4. So I have some extra for another recipe. The same thing with an onion. If I'm cutting up 1, I'm going to cut up 2, right? And then I just kind of estimate what I'm going to put in that recipe. Just for meal prep and to save time. The same thing with the ginger. It says to chop it. I ended up grating it for another recipe, so I'm just going to use grated ginger. I don't think it really matters that much, just as long as you have the ginger flavor. I try to be a little flexible in following a recipe. I feel like as long as it's got the taste and it's not burnt, it's going to be good. So this is a 1/4 inch piece, and so I don't know. I like ginger, so I'm putting in like a teaspoon of ginger. I'm really just estimating that. Oftentimes a recipe will call for a 1-inch piece of ginger, which I just tend to use like this part of my thumb. So 1/4 of an inch isn't really that much. But it's really there to balance out like the cloves and the cranberries. And then we've got a cup of orange juice. So just 8 ounces of the orange juice, which is the liquid that they're using. I'm just kicking on also on my quinoa, which is just about boiling. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my quinoa over to a different burner, just a lower burner, so I can simmer it. And I'm going to set my timer for the quinoa because the stove looks like it's another 30 minutes. I just cook my quinoa for about 15 minutes. I like to check it that way. So we'll have that timer going off. And we put in the orange juice and now the orange zest, which is a tablespoon. So I did that earlier today. I just find, especially, like working full time, like coming home, sometimes the last thing I really want to do is to have to do all of like this little chopping. Because I feel like, as much as I love cooking, I don't always have the energy. And that's why I was talking about like trying to get ahead of like, especially all the little details, the onions, the garlic, but I also come home from the supermarket and I'll take a ton of carrots and beets and kale, bok choy, whatever it is I have. And I try to find a time of day where I'm like highly motivated. So a lot of times for me, it's actually early morning if I can get it in before I go to work, or maybe right when I come home where I'm not too tired. I'll wash everything and then I'll start just chopping away. And I just store everything in either glass or plastic containers and then have everything ready in my refrigerator. So in order to do that, I have to do a little bit of meal planning also. So in the beginning of the week or a few days before I know that I'm going to go shopping, whenever that day of the week is for you, look and decide maybe 3 or 4 different recipes that you want to make, right? Write out those ingredients. And then when you go to the supermarket, it also saves you time in the supermarket because you know exactly what you want to buy. And what I found with myself is I tend to spend less money because I know what I want, and I'm not just going to go around and go, oh, maybe I'll use those peppers, or maybe, yeah, I'll try those cucumbers, or, you know, I'm going to buy collard greens because, you know, later in the week I might make them. So the more organized you can be with your recipes, and then your shopping list, and then going to the supermarket and coming home and being able to wash and prep everything, the easier I think cooking could be, the more enjoyable it can be. And you won't be sort of scurrying around maybe at the end of the day trying to put something together. So, or maybe snacking before you eat dinner because you're hungry, right? And you're kind of spending time doing a lot of the chopping. So this is just my own patterns of behavior that I have found over, I'd say, the last maybe 2 years, that I have found, like, wow, this really works. Like, I even have, and I don't do it all the time, I even have like a little kind of like a not a spreadsheet, but it's a chart that I print out for like my breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It's a meal planner. And like, I don't need it all the time, but there's definitely times through like a season or the year or whatever where I feel like I need that kind of structure to help me do the planning. And then then I sort of get into a groove, and then I feel like, okay, like I don't need to write it all out. I do have it in my head. But again, the planning is really key, especially for plant-based, because you do a lot of washing and chopping, right? You don't want that to get into the way of you having a better diet for yourself. So just a little tips here. I am going to go through and make sure that I have put everything, because I think I know I don't have the sugar. So I've got the cranberries, the spices, the ginger, the orange juice, and the orange zest. Okay, so I'm going to bring that to a boil over high heat, and then the yes, and then after it boils, we're going to turn it down to low, and that's when I'm going to add some of the sugar. And I'm just going to read a little bit about this recipe from this cookbook, because Kate, who is the author, has a wealth of knowledge about particular foods and particular seasons. And it's almost like the harvest. It's almost like nature has really does its own job and provides for us foods that help balance out some of the qualities of the seasons. I can't find the recipe in this book. Oh dear, let's see. So if we think about like the fall season, it's, it's quite a contrast from summer, where summer's really hot and it's really kind of oily, and it's fiery, and we move into the fall, and all of a sudden, like, the humidity is just zapped out of the air, right? So the air is much drier. The temperatures are starting to cool down. The wind picks up. So we have sort of like this light, airy, cool, dry atmosphere around us. And in Ayurveda, you really want to balance that out. And so maybe you guys can turn off your mics. Like, what's the opposite of dry? Anybody can tell me the opposite of dry?
Wet.
Wet, right? Excellent. So we have wet. The opposite of light?
Heavy.
Heavy. The opposite of hot. The opposite of cold. I just gave it away.
Hot.
Hot, yeah, hot or warm. So we have these qualities of the fall, which I said were like cool, airy, light. And so to keep yourself in balance, particularly in food, you want to think about and move towards foods that are warmer, moister, heavier, right? And we think about like what's in season now, a lot of the squashes, the potatoes, beets are kind of always in season. Stews, soups, it's like when we gravitate towards what's in season, we gravitate towards those kinds of foods, we sort of put ourselves in a better state of balance. Now, it's not going to be the cure-all, but it's one thing to think about. And in Ayurveda, they like in the Western diet, we look at like protein, we look at carbohydrates, we look at fats and oils and dairy. In Ayurveda, they don't really look at food that way, but they look at it as having 6 tastes. So we have sweet, sour, salty, astringent, pungent, and bitter. So I'm just going to read you a little bit about the cranberry clove chutney. Cranberries punch. They're sharp, right? They're bitter, they're astringent, can focus your energy, and the berries cleanse the blood and digestive organs with their powerful combination of astringent and sour tastes. Sharp and penetrating, yet cooling. So cranberry clove chutney will keep you feeling sharp and energized while aiding your digestion of heavy foods. So it's sort of natural to eat the heavier foods, but even within the season of heavy foods, you want some foods that are going to even balance that out or help you in digesting. Our digestive system is actually pretty strong through the winter, and that's why we can digest those heavier foods. You don't really want to be eating like stews in the middle of the summer. So making this chutney will save you the extra sugar of the store-bought cranberry sauce. All right. And just a note here, she calls it the clove attack. The cloves can stay in the chutney to further infuse, but just watch out when you're dishing it out. To tell the truth, I remove them before storing the chutney because I find biting into a clove really unpleasant. So she's just sort of encouraging you to avoid that. And I have done that too, and I've made the mistake also of biting into it. All right, so just to keep time here, we've got about 20 minutes for the acorn squash. The cranberries are starting to, I'm just going to show you. I know you can't see. Just, aren't they pretty color? So the cranberries are starting to pop a little bit. They are starting to boil, so I'm going to soon turn them down to low, but I'm going to measure out the sugar. So it says half a cup of dehydrated cane juice. So I don't have cane juice, but I looked up online what would be an equivalent to that. And it's basically the dehydrated cane juice is sort of less processed sugar, that it actually maintains a little bit of the molasses in it. So the color will be, it won't be as brown as like brown sugar, but it will be a little bit of a tan tint than say like white sugar. I, these days, stay away from any kind of processed sugar. So typically in a recipe, and a lot of the recipes I use, or I'll substitute, I use now organic coconut sugar, which you could really find almost anywhere now. Like I think I was in Marshall's the other day. You know how they have like all those, they have so many like delicious like superfoods there now. You can get a lot of really good food. So Marshall's and Trader Joe's sells a coconut sugar. And they also have like a really good price. I haven't been to a Christmas tree shop, but I know that they have a fairly big food section. I wouldn't be surprised if they have that there, because I get a lot of my, the Bob's, like that Red Mill, they make all these different kinds of gluten-free flours and chickpea flour, really good prices. So,
Nancy, are you thinking of Job Lot? Not Christmas Tree. Job Lot has all the mills.
well, Job Lot, but the Christmas tree in Natick also used to carry it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so either one, but yeah, definitely I've seen it at the Ocean State Job Lot as well.
Yeah.
Now, this calls for half a cup of sugar. I might put in a little bit less, but cranberries are pretty bitter. So it's not, no, I'm gonna go for the half a cup.
Nancy, it's Steve. I was going to say we've been using a lot of like natural honey, and I think one of the things that's really good for the fall cooking is the maple syrup instead of the sugar.
Yeah, yes, I agree totally. I really like that as well. Especially if you could get some that was just, you know, some local. Same thing with the local honey, right? You want to eat local, especially that honey. Yeah, what I could possibly do too is maybe somebody even wants to look this up, is to see like a half a cup of that cane sugar, what that would be for maple syrup, because it probably could be that would be a good swap. Okay, so I added the cane sugar to the cranberries, and basically they're going to cook for about 10 minutes. So let's see. I've got about 2 minutes left for the quinoa, so when that timer goes off, I'll set it up for the cranberry. And I've got it on low, and it's just kind of simmering here. The cranberries are going to cook, and you just kind of wait for it to get to, you know, you're going to stick a spoon in it. It's going to kind of stick to the spoon, right? A little bit thick. Okay. So we're pretty much done with the cranberries. We got the quinoa cooking. We've got about 17 minutes on the acorn squash. I think we're doing really well here. Next, what I'm going to do is cook up the stuffing for the acorn squash. Do people have any particular questions right now? Things that they're thinking about? Anything about foods or where to buy certain things? You guys are good?
I have one question.
Sure.
This acorn squash that you're making now, do you use that as a main course because it has the beans and the other proteins?
Yeah, I would. My diet these days is no chicken, no meat, very little fish. Maybe once a month I might have some fish. Lately I've had a little bit of cheese, and I've had some eggs here and there. So my meals are mostly some type of vegetable. I roast a lot of pumpkin seeds, and I was going to show you sunflower seeds. So I just roast these in like some sunflower oil. And I was going to say that I will probably, okay, so I will probably, like when I'm done and I'm going to eat the acorn squash, I will probably sprinkle some of those seeds on it. I'll just add it. All right, so we have about 8 minutes on the cranberry, and the quinoa is done, so I'm going to turn that off. In fact, I'm going to swap the cranberry. Some of you who cooked with me before, you know my burners, they're really high. So I'm going to simmer that there. Okay. And that one was uncovered. So yeah, I would have that for me as my main meal. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I added the quinoa to it, just to have some more protein. I might also saute some greens. Like right now I have like some beet greens, bok choy, I have kale, and I have spinach. So maybe I would saute some of that up with some maybe leeks or shallot. And so I'd have like a side of greens with that. When you start eating, say this, I'm finding that I think that I used to eat a lot more in a meal, during a meal, maybe even 3 or 4 years ago than I do now. I don't know if I was having foods that had more feels like empty nutrition in it. I'm trying to think like what is really making the difference. I'm probably tuning more into my own rhythms of the day, of if I'm hungry or not. So I pretty much eat like breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I never skip a meal. I know some people do, but my constitution, my whole body type can't do that. I could never skip breakfast. I would have a massive headache if I did. And I can't skip lunch, because for me, I have a bigger, better lunch. So my lunches are much sort of bigger than my dinner. And I found that's helped me sleep better, to have less food in the late afternoon or early evening. And I think my foods just have a lot more vitamins and minerals and nutrition in them, so that I'm getting, I'm getting satisfied. And I'm also sort of tuning into, this is sort of my own mindfulness of just mindful eating, just sort of stop before I'm really stuffed, that feeling on Thanksgiving. Well, sometimes I would live that more than just the holiday. And so I'm sort of tuning into that and leaving myself a little empty. So it's a good question. I'm not sure what other people are doing, but yeah, definitely that acorn squash would be my meal. The cranberries are definitely cooking, they're thickening. And so with that, we're going to move on to cooking the stuffing. And I was thinking too, like this would be a great stuffing just for, for your Thanksgiving meal. If you're having turkey, you can have this as a side dish. So this calls for some olive oil, 2 tablespoons of olive oil. And then we're going to cook up the shallots, the garlic, the pepper. It's interesting, like now that I will have made this recipe, I may vary it a little bit. So maybe instead of the pepper, I might actually like shave some Brussels sprouts and try that with, oh God, there's so many different combinations. You could roast beets. Like if you want the sweetness, like the red pepper has a little bit of sweetness, you could maybe roast beets and chop them all up really small and add that instead of the red pepper. Then you get that color also. I like the variation of the greens. Like today I'm going to use spinach, but you could make it with kale. You could also make it with bok choy. And let's see what else. You could probably even swap out the red pepper for carrots. Carrots are kind of sweet also. So I like the recipe because there's a lot of flexibility in that. So some olive oil. I often actually don't cook with olive oil. I'm going to do it because I'm just going to follow this recipe, but I've switched over to using more sunflower oil and grapeseed oil. But I'll do it today with the olive oil. I don't think the oil makes that much difference in the flavor.
Why do you use the sunflower and grapeseed oil as opposed to olive?
Well, I've been doing some reading about whether you should actually heat up olive oil or not. And that there are, there's, just a lot the literature out there on olive oil should just be eaten, like just drizzled on food when you're done cooking, or like in a salad, and that it doesn't withstand the higher heat.
Yeah.
Like a grapeseed oil or a sunflower oil, or I do a lot with coconut oil. I probably wouldn't put coconut oil in this recipe,
Mm-hmm.
but
Thanks.
Yeah, sure. I know there's a lot to read out there, but it gets to sometimes your own preference. All right, so I minced up some garlic and some shallot. I'm kind of glad that I didn't cut the shallots with you, because I gotta say, like, I had a really good cry from the shallot. And I did my first cooking class, and I cut the onions and garlic with everybody, and this, oh my God, I was so teary-eyed, I couldn't even see anything for a while. So I kind of learned that way to pre-cut the shallots, pre-cut the onions. All right, let's see what this recipe says. Shallots, garlic, and the red pepper. Pretty easy recipe. Let's see if yeah, you guys can see that. There's nothing like the good smell of onion and garlic sauteing. So I don't know how many people are cooking along with me, but hopefully all right, so that is the timer for the cranberry. And I'm just taking the back of my spoon and mashing up some of the cranberry. And I'm going to check that recipe one more time. I think I would cook mine a little bit more.
Nancy, that must smell wonderful in the kitchen with all those spices.
It does smell really good. It does say that the cranberry will thicken as it cools. But my cranberries didn't break up so much. So what I'm going to do is just going to put it on for, I'll just do another 5 minutes. Okay, so I'm going to switch back to the quinoa, and then I'm going to add the mushrooms. I cut up all the mushrooms. I used like the baby Bella mushrooms, just as an FYI. Let's see where my cup is. Oh, here it is. What would be really nice is, because I go out and forage for mushrooms, and it was not a great year for it. And I had some mushrooms back probably like in September, but nothing since then. But what would have been really nice is to be able to forage your own mushrooms and then add them to this dish, right? That would be really cool. All right, so we're gonna do mushrooms, the beans. So with the beans, I just bought a can. You could, lots of times I buy bulk beans and I'll soak them and then cook them in my Instant Pot. But I just went for the can. And I rinse them, drain them and rinse them. And I ended up just putting them back in the can. So that's the beans. And what else they want to put in here? Some thyme. So I grow my own thyme. It's probably the easiest herb you could grow. And so this is from my own garden, a tablespoon. And I'm not even gonna measure it out. I'm just gonna dump that in. I just took that off the sprigs. And then a teaspoon of red pepper flakes. So unless you like it really hot, just make sure that it's a teaspoon and not a tablespoon, right? So I'm just using some red pepper flakes. This looks really nice. A twist of salt, twist of pepper. So I've got some pink Himalayan salt in that, and some pepper. I like pepper, so I put a few twists in there. This looks amazing. I'm gonna take a picture of it. I'm gonna send it to Courtney, and she'll send it all out to you guys. It looks really good. I'll show it to you. Do we know if anybody's cooking along with me, Courtney? Anybody said that?
I see 3 people cooking. I assume they're cooking along.
Now, I have already eaten dinner, but what I love about this cooking is that if people are cooking along with me, maybe it is their dinner. If not,
I am
I have
cooking. This is my dinner.
What's that?
Mark is cooking and it is his dinner. And Nina's cooking, and I believe Nancy's cooking.
Oh yeah, excellent. So hopefully you guys are sort of keeping pace here. I know that I have cooked quite a lot of stuff. It looks really nice. Yeah, this could be lunch for tomorrow also. We're gonna be home for lunch. So let's make sure that I have added everything. The mushrooms, the beans, the thyme, the red pepper flakes, few twists of salt and pepper, and cook for another 3 minutes. And then we're gonna add the leafy greens until they are wilted. They said you could cover in between the stirring to help soften the greens. I'm gonna use spinach because spinach is really good for you, right? Builds up those muscles, and it wilts pretty quickly. If I was using kale, which is a lot heartier, a lot thicker, also like super fantastic for you, it's one of the superfoods, then I might cover it so that the steam from the dish will help to wilt that out. And I was wondering, when are we going to put in those cranberries? So we're getting a lot of cranberries. This recipe calls for dried cranberries. I thought I had cranberries, but it turns out they're like cran raisins. So I almost thought about using. Okay, so that's the timer for the cranberries. So I'm going to turn that off, and then I'm going to try to show this to you. This has a very strong, delicious smell to it. So I went in to smell the cranberries, and I smelled the stuffing. So just a really nice, beautiful color, great texture. Again, I'm just using my wooden spoon to break them up a little bit. And they are breaking up, so aha! So that's the timer for our squash. I'm going to give this a little bit of a mix. I think what you really want to make sure with the stuffing is that the mushrooms are cooked. It's always best to cook mushrooms first. And you know what I was thinking of, what I would do, because the recipe calls for, once this is done, we're really going to add in the cranberries and the quinoa. And then you take the squash out and you're going to scoop the quinoa into the squash. I almost feel like I would put it in the oven with the quinoa in it for, I don't know, maybe like another 5 minutes. I feel like, I could be making this up, but I almost feel like the flavor would seep into the squash. But I think if you're maybe if you're just scooping it out with your fork anyway, it's kind of all the same. But I'm probably thinking of another recipe that I made many years ago with a stuffed butternut squash. All right, so I took the acorn out and I'm just going to test it. I'm just puncturing the skin. Whoops. Ooh, be careful. Yeah, yeah, I guess it is cooked. I might throw it back in. 2 minutes. 2 or 3 minutes. Oh, you know, actually, I'm going to take that back. I'm not going to. Because when I reheat it, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take my quinoa and put it in the squash. And then that's how I'm going to, that's the dish, but that's how I'm actually going to reheat my meal. So this is definitely soft enough. So I just want to get them out of there and put them on a plate. So let's see. Put them on this platter. This is going to be tricky because they are really hot. I don't really want to cook them more. So I'm just going to go get my tongs here. I'm going to put them on plate just to kind of cool them down a little bit. Get this out of here. I feel like we're making a lot of stuffing, and the hole in the squash really isn't that big. So, yeah, they are definitely cooked. They smell really good too. I'm excited to have the acorn squash again, because like I said, it's not a squash that it's going to get rid of this water. That I eat a lot. And I cooked this for more than 3 minutes. But that's okay. I really wanted the mushrooms to cook, and I really wanted the seasoning to kind of mix it and gel. I love thyme. It's a really nice sort of savory flavor to it. And let's say the spinach, 2 cups. Probably the next time I make it, I'm just gonna stuff that with spinach. I probably won't measure it. I'll probably just eyeball it. I'd say 2 handfuls, lots of spinach. It wilts down to nothing. So we're just going to really mix this around, and then we're going to add the cranberries, and then I'll stuff one for us, see how that looks. Now the recipe, I think that I added this to yours. The person who created this recipe suggested, some kind of toppings. So she went for the heat. She went for the sriracha sauce. Probably not what I would go for, because also in here is already some red pepper flakes. I like spicy food, but I don't like it too hot. I really would rather be able to taste the savoriness of this dish with the mushrooms and the thyme. So, like I said, I will probably top mine off with some of my roasted seeds. The seeds have, they've got just a lot of nutrients in them. They're good energy foods. So they They help to build muscle. So all good reasons to eat seeds. You could probably add hemp seeds to the top of it as well. If you're somebody who enjoys and wants to have more fiber in the diet. I mean, this we haven't even really talked about fiber, but I mean, that's the whole idea behind plant-based, is that there is so much fiber in your diet. It really is incredibly healthy. And but I was going to say, if you wanted to, you could probably add some ground flaxseed. So that's another thing that I do is I'll buy flax seeds, and then I have my own like spice grinder. So I'll grind my seeds in the gotta add the cranberries into my grinder. I'll make my own ground flax. I'll do that with all of my Indian spices as well. So we have half a cup of dried cranberries.
Nancy, where do you buy whole Indian spices?
Oh, great question. Those who know me know I could do a whole course on Indian spices. So I'm just going to add the cranberries. Looks like a few got away. So I go to some of the local Indian markets.
I'm gonna interrupt you because Nancy's showing us her product. I don't know if I can show everyone. Let me see.
Oh, did Nancy make her squash?
She did, but I can't figure out how to show everyone without.
All right, Nancy.
Thank you, Nancy.
Did she show it? Wait, I missed it.
Let me see if I can do this.
Oh,
There we go.
love it.
Beautiful. We can't hear you, Nancy, but it's beautiful.
Thank you very much. It was delicious. It was a teeny bit too spicy for my daughter, but it's delicious.
So the spiciness of the red pepper, Nancy?
I put a lot of ginger in the chutney.
Oh, okay.
But if you really take nice big chunks of the squash out with the bite, it's really good.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. We're gonna continue to enjoy.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nance.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, whoops. So we lost my kitchen, Courtney. We got somebody else's kitchen in there, but okay. Now we got Mark on the screen. Mark, did you cook too? Oh, you're muted.
Yes, and I'm kind of right along with you. So
Are you?
Yeah.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. Are you able to show yours?
Being technologically adult, I'm not sure I would know how to do that.
Can you hold your plate up?
When it's all done, I'll try.
Okay. All right. So what we have to do, the last step, is to combine. And it says the larger of the two pots. So what I'm going to do is so now, Courtney, are you able to pin me again? Just spotlight me?
Yeah, I think I did.
Okay.
Maybe I didn't. Hold on.
I was seeing Mark.
Here we go. I'm sorry. Let's see.
Oh, yeah.
There we go. Sorry about that.
So, wow, this is a lot of, like I said, this is a lot of stuffings. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it all in a glass bowl. This way you guys also will be able to see. They're beautiful colors, which I love. I love to make my food inviting, right? So I like to use food that has all different colors. I can't just eat like brown food all the time. So let's see. I need a bigger spoon. So it's nice because we've got the green, we've got the red. We have the really deep red from the cranberries. So this was just all the veggie mix. I like to scrape everything. I get every last drop because the pan has so much seasoning in it. I just realized I gotta turn off my oven. Where did my scraper go? Here it is. Yeah, so I usually just do a scrape of my pan. Get all the garlic, the shallots. Okay. And then I'm going to, wow, made a lot. I'm going to mix in the quinoa. I think I'm just going to hold on doing all of the quinoa. Let's see. I wonder if I made too much quinoa. Let me just go check that. Oh, you know what? It said 2 cups quinoa. So I mean 1 cup quinoa, but I think it was 1 cup. I wonder for the people who cooked, I made 2 cups of quinoa. Really? I did 1 cup, you know, raw, which makes 2 cups. So I probably have too much quinoa in it. That's okay. I didn't put it all in, but yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I probably have a cup out. Okay. So I'm gonna just give it a little taste just to see what it's like. And I bet something like this, if it was to sit, you know, overnight, that the flavors would really like kind of, you know, enhance one another. And let's see here. Very, very good. I'll tell you one thing, for me, a teaspoon of that red pepper is hot for me. It's spicy. Not so much, I don't know about the ginger. I'm gonna try that out. So what I like to do is make up a plate, and also what could be nice is just taking the cranberry sauce, the chutney, and putting on top of the quinoa. That would be really nice. That wasn't my you know, intention with this recipe, but I think that would be really lovely. So I'm just going to scoop some in. So you could probably have it on the side. Yeah, this makes a lot of stuffing. Definitely can stuff more than 4 squashes, which is good to know. So it's a good sort of, you know, get together party dish. Sometimes you don't know how much things are, how much, you know, something's going to make. And this definitely feeds a lot of people. So I'm going to pick that all up. What do you guys think I should do? Do you think I should top it off with the chutney for a little bit of color, additional color, or my seeds?
Or both.
Or both. I'll make another one. There you go. We have some time, right? Yeah. This, you know, this didn't take long to cook, really, if you think about it. Probably an hour.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if we got, you know, everybody was let in the room at 6, 7:10 now. So, okay. So let me move this out of the way a little bit. I'm going to top off this one with the cranberry chutney. We got to remember, I got my clove in there, so I got to find that. I got to find the clove. All right. Hopefully it's not in there. So it's got such a wonderful color. At some point, I'm going to take a picture of that. So I'm going to clear off my plate. Can you guys see that? I can't tilt it too much. So there we've got it with the.
Can you bring it closer, Nancy?
Yeah,
There we go.
right?
Thank you.
Little,
Beautiful.
isn't that nice? A little bit more than a teaspoonful. I like that color. You could even, if you really wanted to decorate your plate, you probably take a few sprigs of thyme. I've got some white plates because I just do a lot of photographing of my food. And you could probably sprinkle some thyme around there, or some, you know, just even some other herb, I should say. Oh, so let me tell you about the Indian markets. There's 2 Indian markets in Framingham. One of them is by Edgell Road, which is like past Trader Joe's on Route 9 on the westbound side. It's a smaller one. That's the one that I started to go to. And they're, you know, helpful in there. You can buy these pretty like big bags of spices. So I buy my cumin seeds, coriander seeds, and especially the cumin seeds. I'll grind that up myself, so I never buy any ground cumin anymore. Fennel, turmeric, big, huge bags of turmeric, ginger powder, and they're probably like, some bags are $1.99, some are $2.99, maybe $3.99. You're going to get like a big bag. But you know, if you go to a supermarket, you're just going to get like a small, you know, thing of spices, depending upon where you buy them. You know, this is probably $5 or $6. So great prices for the spices. Also, across the street from Trader Joe's, there is a market that's been there probably for like 2 years, and it also has a restaurant along with it. So it's a larger supermarket. They have more organic spices, organic beans, organic lentils, and then you have the restaurant there. I think it's called Spices Hut. So I have been going there. And what I also love about the markets are that, like, I eat a lot of chickpeas, eat a lot of lentils, and again, you can buy like big bags of dried chickpeas. So these I soak and then I'll cook up myself. And you know, a big bag like this might be $5. I mean, really great prices. I got some organic rice at one of them. Again, you could, like, if you eat a lot of rice, you can get like 5 or 10 pound bags of rice there. All right, so there's also an Indian market in Waltham. So for people who maybe like that sort of their go-to town. And there's also one out, really big one in Westboro, like huge supermarket that I've been to once. So I'm just filling up this other squash. I kind of wish I didn't eat dinner already, although it's just late for me. These look delicious. I'm really excited. I'm just going to scrape that off. And this one, so like I said, I buy raw pumpkin seeds and sunflower seeds, the pepitas. In fact, I was at Marshall's the other day, and I bought a huge bag of sunflower seeds there, and they were organic sunflower seeds. And I don't think the pumpkin seeds were organic, but they look like from a nice company, all raw, big bags, great prices on them. So you never know, like a lot of places now are just starting to carry a lot of these foods that are, you know, really nutritious, really good for you. So I'm just I had already roasted these in sunflower seed, and I'm just gonna sprinkle that on. So that's something else you could do, is just kind of make your plate look fun and sprinkle them onto the plate. And I'll show you this one. Okay, so just a little bit different. And see if we can, oh, there's the other one. So we got the two together. I've got two more. I probably won't stuff them, but what I'll do is I'll tomorrow or whenever I'm going to eat them, just stuff them before that. I will put them in the oven or the toaster oven for maybe preheat it, maybe put it in for like another, maybe just 10 minutes just to warm it up. So I'm kind of glad that I didn't continue to cook the acorn squash, because I think that also I think the skin would have just started to like wilt and fall apart. It wouldn't have been able to hold up itself here as a shell. Let me just show you the cranberry sauce really did get nice and thick. Whoops, it's a little warm. Yes, super thick. So I'm thinking of maybe freezing this and then having it for Thanksgiving. Either that or I'm just gonna dive into it and have it with it. Maybe just eat it through the week. Because I think cranberry sauce, you know, it's nice warm, right? It's good chilled. And I can see putting cranberry sauce on lots of different things. I think everything Thanksgiving, right? So anything I'm making this week, like sweet potatoes, any kind of greens, even, you know, string beans, the squash, the quinoa, everything can have cranberry sauce on it.
Oatmeal.
Oh, there you go, oatmeal. Because I mean, you think about it, you put dried cranberries on lots of things. So yeah, oatmeal and cranberry sauce. I mean, I think that would be absolutely phenomenal. So I remember when I lived in Cambridge, there was a ice cream store. It's probably still there, Tuscanini's. And only one time during the year, right after Thanksgiving, where they would sell like Thanksgiving feast ice cream. And they took all the stuff that you would have for your Thanksgiving meal, including the turkey.
Oh my gosh.
Make some kind of, you know, they had like a vanilla base ice cream, and then they would add all of that stuff into it. I don't think I ever tried it, but I always remember it being on their recipe board. And I thought, you know, they were always so like on the cutting edge anyway of ice cream flavors. And this is back like in the late 80s, so it was quite a while ago, before a lot of the other ice cream stores came around. It was like Tuscanini's and Steve's. But anyway, so you can get very creative with your food. Hey, as long as, you know, as long as it's good for you and it's delicious, then why not? And that's sort of been my guide even for breakfast. I used to have like a lot of cereal or things that were sweet, and now I eat much more savory. So I would have no qualms about eating this stuffed acorn squash for breakfast. Because I know it's good food, and I know I like the taste of it. So there's no determination there. I think Western culture is maybe one of the only, you know, I don't know about one of the only, but I'm thinking about some of like the countries out in like in Asia, Japan, China, where they don't really have like a sweet breakfast. You know, I think about like the Japanese that might have like soup and vegetables, you know, or fish for breakfast. So this is similar to that. You know, they're not really eating the pancakes with maple syrup or the sweetened cereal with milk. So why not? So we're just about, I mean, we're done cooking. I would love to stay on if people had more questions, anything plant-based related about, you know, any part of that lifestyle or anything about what we made tonight. I don't want to keep people also, because I know it's getting late into the evening.
Does anyone have any questions? feel free to jump on or type it in the chat.
I don't have any questions, but I wanted to thank you for this, because I'm definitely going to make this now. And I've always been a little intimidated by squash and the cutting and you know, just like all the preparation parts of it. So it's just nice to be able to like watch you do it and not be psyched out anymore.
Oh, good. Yeah, squash can be very friendly. And it's funny, I've never roasted acorn squash, but you know, it is pretty easy to cut. I didn't do the cutting of it in front of you, but it was actually very easy to cut. Butternut squash, I might peel it before. Sometimes I don't, but they're so delicious. They could be eaten on their own, but I love this idea of combining something with it. And yeah, try, you know, don't be shy in your kitchen. Again, as long as you don't burn it, I bet everything's going to taste delicious. So I'm glad that I could instill a little bit more comfort, you know, in your future cooking. That makes me feel really happy. And I have another, if you go onto peaksandposes.com, I do have one more cooking workshop coming up with my local library in Hopkinton. We're going to be making some really wonderful holiday treats. They're going to be sort of Ayurveda style, so they're going to be using a lot of like cacao and ginger and almonds and almond flour. So things that you don't have to feel so guilty about eating and sharing, because it won't be any processed sugar in there and just kind of like some of that junky holiday treats. But yeah, but go onto my website and check out some of the other events that are coming up. And I hope that Wayland Library will invite me back. Oh, actually, I'm going to put a little plug in. I am going to be back with the Wayland Library in January for a chair yoga event. So we're going to wind down in our living room together instead of the kitchen. So eat beforehand. Really fun. And if Courtney would like to invite me come back in the winter or in the spring and do another seasonal cooking workshop, I would absolutely love that.
Yeah, I was also thinking we should go somehow virtually go on your mushroom foraging walks.
Wow,
that would be cool.
We have to do that next summer or fall.
Yeah. Did Mark have a question?
I was just going to thank you. This is wonderful. Who has to do the dishes, though?
Well, your own home, is that Mark? I think you're going to have to do your own dishes. Mine, it will probably take me maybe 15 minutes to clean up. Really won't be long. But yeah, it's funny it's a good question. When I cook, the one thing I know about myself is that like I don't particularly like being left with a kitchen full of dishes. So I often will clean up as I go. So I'm really glad that you brought that up. So although it looks a little bit like, my dishwasher is empty, so I can throw a lot of things in there, but yeah. So I just try to make things easier for me. And I kind of know myself pretty well now that like, I know what's going to not make something fun. And I know when I'm done eating, like the last thing I really want to do is clean up, you know, just a lot of dirty dishes. So I will definitely like clean as I go. I don't know if anybody else can relate to that, but I've just found that works for me. I'll have to make it in. I'll probably end up turning on some music and just having that.
Well, thank you very much. This was delicious.
Oh, good. I'm so glad you all joined. I mean, really, thank you all. We had a great turnout. I don't really know the actual count, but
yeah, 15 people. It's a great turnout.
That's fantastic.
And we recorded it, so we'll share it far and wide. It'll be on YouTube as well. So.
Wow, that's exciting. So can I put a link on I can put a link on my website too.
Yep.
Fantastic.
Great.
Yeah, so thank you all again. I hope that you learned something. I hope it was inspiring for you. I hope you'll go out and buy some squash or eat some quinoa. And, again, check out my website, peaksandposes.com. You want any help in how to move towards more of a plant-based lifestyle, I'm really here to help people And, you know, thank you again, Courtney. And thank you to the Wayland Library for inviting me back.
Thank you.
Sharing, you know, just one of my passions.
Thank you again, Nancy. We'll see you in January.
Welcome. Yeah, I'm excited for that.
Okay. Everybody have a great night.
All right. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you again.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.